Hello. Welcome, everyone. I get to bang my gong again. Welcome back. This is a season opener of our Ideas on Top. It's the first event after summer. So thank you all for coming. Today's topic or Ideas on Top is on language and literature. So just before we go into into our presentations, I just want to mention a couple of things, sort of logistics. For those who have never been here before, bathrooms are on either side of the elevator there. We do have a Skypad, which is our kind of a kitchen and or lobby where we have drinks and snacks, which we always bring in. Drinks are $2, so all the booze is donated by Vendasta, but we are actually fundraising the money today, so that all the proceeds from the drinks, which are $2, are going to a fundraiser, which I'm going to mention right away. So thank you very much for coming. There's a couple things that happen over summer. One of the things, I'm just trying to wear glasses here they make me look smarter, and I probably don't really need to wear them. So a couple things that happened. A lot of camping trips, right? So we had a camping trip in Vendasta, and summer was very nice, so we did that. Vendasta also formed the very first dragon boat races. And it's really cool because it was the very first time that we formed a team, and the team raised over $5,500 for Ronald McDonald House and Children's Wish Foundation. So this is pretty good. We had fun on the water, and we raised some money as well. Another really exciting news, just recently, we were named as the number 42nd on the Profit 500 list of fastest growing revenue companies in Canada. So imagine that, in Saskatoon, in the entire Canada, we're on the list and we're number 42, which is really proud of it because it's a great kind of, I like to feel it's a great success story for us, and it's probably a good success story for Saskatoon as well. Speaking of fundraising. So today we are probably in a good cause. We're using those events to raise money for charitable organizations, mostly local and a lot that have anything to do with children. This is something that the Monday that right from the start we sort of picked for ourselves. It has to be local, and we raise money for children. So today we are proud and to host and have organization which is the Autism Services of Saskatoon. So like I mentioned, the all proceeds from beer goes to that cause. And also we're going to have 50-50 tickets, and I don't know, we have a few runners that we're going to sort of, they're going to sell the tickets at the end of this event, right there. Right, which is always fun, the 52, and again, all the proceeds go to Autism Services of Saskatoon. We're going to also have a little presentations from them as well. So, I don't think I forgot anything about welcoming. So, first we're going to have our first guest, Alice Kuipers. Sorry, I'm sorry, Kuipers. I especially asked, and then I guess, I'm sorry about that, but in any case, so Alice is a best-selling, award-winning author of 5 YA novels, 2 picture books, and the upcoming chapter book, Polly Diamond. Her work has been published in 32 countries and performed on stages around the world. Please welcome Alice. I'm really sorry about the name. Next time.
Hi. Oh, good. This is working. I know before I was just talking in Jason's ear, but I feel like all of you might be able to hear me now. Is that right in the back? Cool. Well, I have a beautiful presentation that Jason is just getting ready for us and finding. I want to say, first of all, thank you very much to Vendasta for hosting me this afternoon and for welcoming me to such a fun and exciting event. I had no idea that you guys did this and that this was happening here in Saskatoon. So it's really nice to be part of this and to emerge from my life with 4 tiny children and books and chaos to the peace and calm and fun and excitement and energy that comes from being in this room. So thank you for having me. My talk today is called Where Writers Discover Ideas and Inspiration. The theme for today is language and literature, and I think all of the speakers, certainly the two I've been chatting with so far this afternoon, are focusing on how we share through language our creativity. I'm going to talk about me and my writing a little bit and where my ideas come from. I'm not a marketer, I'm not a salesperson, I'm just a writer. But perhaps for some of you that will be interesting, either because you yourself have ambition or ideas about writing for yourself, or perhaps you want to take some of those ideas and think about them in your own creative work, because it seems to me there's a lot of creative people and a lot of creative energy in this room. So I have no idea if any of this is applicable to people who don't write books, but that's what I'm going to talk about. Oh, there we go. So when you're a writer, the question that you get asked most often is, where do ideas come from? My work, I go into schools, I go to talk to grown-ups, I go all over the place doing talks about writing, and invariably somebody will feel that they want me to try and pin down that answer. So Dr. Seuss, who's a children's author I admire, said, I get all my ideas in Switzerland near the Forker Pass. There is a little town called Gletsch, and 2,000 feet above Gletsch there is a smaller hamlet called Obergletsch. I go there on the 4th of August every summer to get my cuckoo clock fixed. And while the cuckoo is in the hospital, I wander around and talk to people in the streets. They are very strange people, and I get my ideas from them. I feel like he was teasing this idea that there's any way to pin down a real answer about where inspiration comes from. And yet my entire creative life and my entire career is built around the fact that ideas do come to me. I have learned to listen when that little voice inside sparks up with something. I've learned to make notes through the years, to take even the most silly or frivolous of ideas seriously. A while ago, when I was at a writing festival, one of the other authors, who I have no idea what her name was, talked about exactly where she thought inspiration comes from, and she said it came from two places. Inspiration came from your imagination plus your observation. So the first word there should actually read imagination, but there you go. That's what happens when you're trying to make a presentation and your 3-year-old is trying to sit on your head and saying, Mummy, talk to me. Your imagination and your observation. For me, breaking that down means that sometimes when I get stuck, when I'm not feeling creative, when I don't have ideas coming to me, I take a little step back and I have a think about those two sides of it. So firstly, observation. What does that mean to me? Well, when you're a writer, it means looking out at the world. It means paying attention to the news. It means going to art galleries, looking at other people's work, reading a ton, listening to what other people are saying. Any of you who live here in Saskatoon, and I think that's most of you who are in this room, if you're in a coffee shop and I'm nearby, my headphones don't always have music playing. I'm actually just listening to you and maybe making notes on what you're saying. Not because I'm going to use it in a story, but because I'm just opening myself up to what is going on in the world, what the pulse is of the world outside me. But sometimes that's tiring. There's a lot going on in the world that's sad and difficult and challenging and depressing and not exciting creatively. And so if I start to feel like that, then I switch off the outside world and I look in. And I don't know if this will be helpful to any of you, but I understand we come from a culture where busyness is valued extremely highly. And I don't at all value being over busy. So I actively make time every day to take a little time to do nothing. I used to smoke heavily, so every day I would have like 25-minute breaks in a day. And then I stopped smoking and suddenly I didn't have those 25-minute breaks and I'm just standing around doing nothing but smoking. And in all seriousness, that is a great benefit to my health, I'm sure. But it was a loss to that little bit of time when I wasn't surrounded by other people or other things. Now, believe me, when you have a 1-year-old, a 3-year-old, a 5-year-old, a 7-year-old, I have 2 books coming out next year. I'm teaching online at the University of Toronto and in 3 other places, starting up right now. I do talks all the time. It's not that I couldn't answer all the time that I'm busy, but I genuinely think it's important to take a little time to nurture my imagination. It's a muscle, I believe, and I think, like any muscle, it needs a little time to work out. And the way for me to work my imagination out is to do nothing, is to have a hot bath, is to stare into space, is to look out the window, is to walk the dog across the street and just stand there for a couple extra minutes after the dog has finished doing a crap, just waiting to see what my imagination comes up with. And it does come up with stuff. It asks that question, what if, which is so essential to creativity. What if things were not as they are right now? What if they were completely different? So despite the fact my slide is wrong, it should say imagination plus observation. I think all of you understand what I'm trying to say. So I've written lots of books, and I've written lots of books that also are not published. So that for me means that I've learned along the way to take the risk that some of my ideas don't work out, and that's okay. Sorry, this is going to need to replay. The fact of it is if you take risks creatively, it's not always going to be successful. Some of your books are going to work. They're going to sell really well. They're going to do lots of things. Some of your ideas are just going to blow Vendasta out of the water. Some of your ideas are going to speak to other people and connect. Some of them may not connect for 10 years, 20 years, ever in your lifetime. Some of them are just dumb, and that's okay too. To have ideas, you have to be open to what they are. You have to be wise enough to trust that your imagination will eventually get there, but it might take a little rewriting. So the one up in the top here, Violet and Victor write the best ever bookworm book. I think it has 674 words in it. Not that I was counting. I rewrote it 300 times at least, and I'm not joking. The art of finessing an idea is the hard work that comes afterwards. So yes, you get inspired, but then you have to push it. You have to take it in certain directions. So sometimes I feel like expressing myself in other creative ways. I have this notion that I'm a reasonably good dancer. So sometimes I'll listen to a song and I try to express myself physically, much to the amusement of my children. But actually, if I take some of the idea stuff that's happening while I'm listening to that piece of music and use my form, which is writing, sometimes that's picture books, sometimes that's young adult books, sometimes that's an essay, rarely is it a poem. If I do that, then I start to push myself in the way I most know how to do. So each of us have creative impulse, but each of us also have strengths. And sometimes writing is bloody hard work, and it's boring, and I don't care what any other writer tells you. They're either lying or just really, really fucking lucky. But really, what it is that you have to go through the parts when you need to work really, really hard, when you don't want to sit down at the desk, when you don't want to work through yet another draft of your awful, awful, awful book, to give it the chance of appearing in the world, of being something that other people want to see. I always tell myself the first draft, when the ideas come, is not the last draft. The last draft is the bit that you get to show the world and other people. And my job is to take those ideas and that inspiration and really push myself to work as hard as I can. I have 2 new books coming out next year, and both of them have come from ideas that I had a long time ago. The idea for Me and Me, which is my next YA novel, came from a book idea I was working on when I was 18. It just took me 20 years, just about, to understand technically how to make that idea real. And it may be when you work in the tech industry that sometimes there isn't the possibilities yet for you to fulfill what your idea is. I didn't have the skill as a writer to do the things I needed to do with Me and Me. Polly Diamond, which is my first chapter book, which will be for my daughter, who's just about the right age for it now. She's just about 5 now. She was a baby when I wrote the first draft. I was pregnant with her when I had the first idea. So even though I'm talking about where ideas come from, there has to be a realistic consideration of what happens when those ideas come to fruition. And not all of them do. For every book I've written, I have a strange habit of writing a second book that never goes anywhere. That just goes in a file in my desk for my eyes only, and I never know which one it's going to be, which is a little heartbreaking. But that's just how I work creatively. You said this clock would tell me where time was, but I don't understand it at all, so I'm just going to keep talking. 3 tips to find your inspiration. So these are the things I do as a writer, and these are specific to writers, so take what you will from them if you're not a writer yourself. Read like crazy. Read, read, read. The world is full of ideas. It's full of smart people. It's full of people telling you how they see the world. Open yourself up to those ideas, whether you like them or not, whether they write badly or well. Read everything you can. Don't flatten your ideas. Trust, stay open. Edit your ideas later. Sure, there is the stage where you need to work really hard. Certainly that's been my experience. But there is also the stage where you have to nurture your idea like it's a little tiny flame, and you have to let it have time to set the world on fire. And make time to do nothing. It's actually the most important thing I do in my day, despite all the other stuff I have going on. I wrote my first novel because I wanted to read it. Your ideas need to go to you first of all. If you're trying to fulfill somebody else's expectations, your idea doesn't really have a hope. Ideas are precious and small to start with, and they need a little space where they can open up before you start thinking about how other people are going to see them. It's quite scary taking your ideas, particularly if you're a writer, but probably in whatever it is all of you guys do too. And taking those outside too soon, too fast, too early is a surefire way to take any possibility of a good idea and killing it. If opportunity doesn't knock, build a door. It may be that the world doesn't know it needs another book by me. Well, it maybe doesn't need it yet. But later, when a teenager writes to me and says, I hadn't read anything until I read Life on the Refrigerator Door, and turning those pages really made me want to start reading again, or really made me want to connect with my mother, or I love Violet and Victor so much I want to write my own books now. I didn't know those people needed that story at that time in their life. That's not really my business. My job is just to build the door and to do my best with it. You can make anything by writing. And what that means to me is that you can open the world and make it new if you trust the stories and the creativity inside of you. I try to do that. I try to do that with the games I play with my kids. I try to do that when I'm desperately trying to figure out what to make for supper in like half an hour when I have 4 screaming children who are starving and ready to eat. I try to pull from that creative source that's inside me to tell the stories I need to tell, to stay calm in a choppy, busy, crazy world, and really believe that the things I have to say, maybe the things that I need to say, are worth saying, whether for other people or whether just for me, is at the idea stage completely irrelevant. So I have lots of writing prompts for any of you who are interested in taking your writing a little further. I have them on Instagram. I have a website, alicekuipers.com. I'm easy to find online. I have a newsletter that has writing tips and prompts and ideas about writing, ideas about books I've loved. If any of you are feeling inspired to start reading a little more fiction, not necessarily by me, I give lots of ideas about books and writing and the world that I live in. Thank you so much for having me. I think I'm pretty much at my 15-minute window. Was it broken, the clock, or was it just a complete mystery?
No, it's the battery was dead.
Oh, okay. Okay, yeah. There you go.
So we're taking out our football, which is a microphone.
Yeah, I'm happy to take questions. I have 5 minutes for questions, apparently, so I will follow that, yeah.
So there we go. So there are arrows to which you have to kind of speak to.
Oh, it's actually
Jody
it's a microphone. That's so cool.
Okay, so how old were you when you started writing in a journal?
So the question to me is, how old was I when I started writing in a journal? I wrote a journal when I was quite young, but I never found that journal writing fulfilled me. I know it fulfills a lot of people who have ambitions and ideas as a writer. I find for me what inspires me creatively is looking out. My books are not about me, they're not about my life, they're not about my world. Even bits that I take from my world, I'm actually not super interested in who I am in that sense. So in terms of writing a journal, I did it for a while and then began to fictionalize it very quickly. Well, none of them can really write yet. Like, my oldest is 7. I did buy him a journal, and my daughter, what she's been doing is drawing pictures, and then I'll write for her. And so I do quite a lot of storytelling that way. She's just asking whether I do journaling with my kids too. I know that for lots of writers, journaling is really, really valuable. For me, even if I ever do start writing about my own life, almost within the first 3 or 4 minutes, I don't know what happens, but I just start making stuff up. And that's just how it rolls for me. That's what fulfills me. But I think there are some really amazing memoirists and journalists who have inspired me hugely as writers by being so open, by being so honest, by being so brave. But for me, it doesn't fuel me. But my kids, I don't know, it'd be interesting to see how much storytelling is important to them. My 3-year-old tells some pretty grand stories about the 5 dragons that live with us. But no, it'll be interesting to see whether they are more on the side of needing to look inwards to find their stories, or whether that inner place brings them to inspiration from the outside world. Yeah, thank you.
Hi, I have a question here. You said for every novel that actually gets published, there's one that just kind of disappears. Have any of those ever worked their way back into the publish realm? Because you mentioned some things take years to sort of incubate and become. Has that ever been the cycle, or is it always just like it's the thing that helps you get through the other book?
So the question is about the second novels, the ones that never get published, the sort of pair novel that I write, which is a strange habit. I don't know if the other writers here do that, but I know that my partner, who's also a writer, doesn't do that. He just writes one at a time. And whether those second novels ever got published or ever went anywhere, Polly Diamond, which is a chapter book, was a second picture book at one point. So while I was writing Violet and Victor, I was also working on a picture book called Polly Diamond, but it didn't work as a picture book. So often, when you write for children and young adults, and Devon can probably attest to this too, if they have time, yeah, the exciting thing is you can try the same idea, but you can try it for a different age group. So it could be that you think you're writing something that's going to work for very young people, but actually it would work way better for teenagers. Or you've been trying really hard, but your character's the wrong age. So it's an interesting way of stepping back, looking and seeing if the idea is really working in the form that I'm telling. One of the ideas that I was working on, and it was when I was working on Life on the Refrigerator Door, which was the first book that I published, but maybe the 10th book that I had written, was called The Due Death of Lucian Bigg. And I keep having ambitions with it. Like, I go back to it, I'm excited by it, I love it. I showed it to my agent, she was like, yeah, this is not a good book. Like, it just isn't working, you need to rethink. So I don't know, I feel like that's probably why I keep those secret. But it's funny, I don't know while I'm working which of the ideas is going to work out, and I keep hoping I'll know. I keep thinking this is a lot of time I feel I can't waste, because I'll throw away like 30, 40,000 words, like months, years of work. Not throw it out, but just put it to one side. But they just don't work. And I don't know why they work. I don't know if they need to be there for me to tell the other story. I find it an odd habit. But I think writers have odd habits in general. And for me, that seems to fuel my creativity. But you might, once I've done all of these, you might find a load of dreadful books by me. And that'll be that. I'll be just pulling them out the drawer. Yeah. Am I done, or is there another question?
One more.
I don't want to.
Another question.
Okay, yeah, no, I don't want to take up
go
my.
ahead.
I feel excited to be in
Your
an environment where
answers
time
are
is so
as interesting
important.
as
It's
your
good,
questions.
yeah. It's keeping me on my toes.
About how much time per day do you spend daydreaming?
Oh, how much? That's a good question. How much time a day do I spend daydreaming? Well, I try very hard to make time to nap every day. But that's because I'm up at 5 most days with my wretched darling baby running around. I would say between 20 minutes and half an hour. And my only other real rule is that I spend time reading every day. So I try and read 50 pages a day. I have these sort of weird rules that I live by. So I don't have any writing rules in terms of how much writing I need to get done. I get a lot done. I don't really know how, but I do. But those are the rules I live by. time to look out the window, have a hot bath. So I had a bath today and a nap. Both. And I seem to have looked after all my children. And there seems to have been some mix-up with one of them being picked up from school, but they seem to be fine now. And I worked on something that needed handing in, and it just gets done. But for me, the thing that fuels that is the time when I'm not doing stuff. Hi.
So what is the shortest amount of time you've taken to actually write a book, or at least one draft of a book, and the longest time you've taken to write a draft of a book?
Oh, that's a good question. So what's the shortest time I've taken to write a book and the longest time I've taken to write a book? Life on the Refrigerator Door is a novel that's entirely in notes. So there is only one note per page. So the whole book is 11,000 words long, which breaks a lot of rules in the publishing industry for YA adult fiction. And the first draft of that, the bulk of it, was extremely fast once I knew what I was doing. At first, I wrote it as notes between a husband and a wife. And it got very angry very quickly, because it turns out that doesn't work. Yeah, it's terrible. But when I realized a mother and a teenage daughter might intentionally be passing each other by, it's not that they never see each other. In the plays that have been made in the book, they see each other. They just don't connect that way. Once I found that, once I made the connection to this illness and started doing the research, the first draft was very quick, but the end was missing. And it was somebody who needed to read that for me, a writer who read that for me and said, you need to bring us back to the world anew at the end. You can't just leave us there. We have to be here. And that was probably a year after I'd written it and put it to one side. I actually thought it was the book to put away, and I was working on Lucian Big, trying to get that one in shape, the one that doesn't work. So I know it's crazy. It sounds so exhausting. It really isn't. It's kind of fun. That moment was when I managed to write the last few pages, and then it was very quick then. It was published within about 18 months. And then the longest one, years and years and years and years and years. Me has taken me years. The first draft was when I was 18. I'm 37 now, and it's coming out in April. Come and find me online, connect with me, say hi, let me know if there's any other questions you have. If I take a couple months to answer, that's only because of the children. It's really not that I'm not interested. Thank you for having me.
Thank you very much, Alice. So next up, we're going to go to our next presentation, which we're going to present Amber Sommerfield. Alice just stepped on the stage. So Amber Sommerfield is going to tell us about the organization which we're raising money for, which is Autism Saskatoon. Thank you very much, guys. So Amber, please come on up and tell us about the organization.
All right. Is there a clicker thing for the presentation? Oh, this one? Okay, perfect. All right. Oh, sorry. All right. Hello, everybody, and welcome. I would like to thank Vendasta for this opportunity to speak on behalf of Autism Services and to share with you all of the wonderful work that takes place there. I have been a part of Autism Services for the past 3 years, and I have been able to see firsthand the impact that the services and resources offered can have on a family. Autism Services is a Saskatoon-based charitable organization that is dedicated to supporting individuals with autism autism spectrum disorder and their families through a variety of services, including advocacy, educational, recreational, social, and residential programs. While autism was once viewed as a rare disorder, today it affects 1 in 68 children, and it is now recognized as one of the most common neurological disorders. Autism includes impairments in social interaction, developmental language, and communication skills, combined with rigid and repetitive behaviors. Autism Services has 4 departments focused on providing supports for our clients and their families. Our 4 departments include family programming, adult support, little tots, and autism intervention. Our adult support programs include the 6 residential homes that we currently have in Saskatoon and serve to the variety of needs of their residents. We provide 24-hour staff supervision and currently home 19 individuals. Our homes are focused on the individual needs of our clients and provide basic living skills combined with social interaction and recreational activities in the community. Our Little Tots program is an early behavioral intervention program that is based on the principles of applied behavioral analysis and consists of 25 hours of treatment and therapy per week for children 4 years and younger. Within the Saskatoon Health Region, Autism Intervention provides behavioral interventions and support services on an individual basis for clients and families. Services are available for individuals up to the age of 19 with a suspected or confirmed diagnosis of autism. Through our family programming, we provide many different programs and services such as bowling, teen club, man club, cooking club, yoga and meditation, strength training, sibling group, parent group, and music therapy, along with many others, where families and individuals with autism can come and get support. The services and resources provided by Autism Services have had a large impact on individuals and families, allowing them to live their lives to the fullest. For some of our families, it has allowed them to stay in the province and close to their extended families. For others, it has provided them the opportunity to develop social skills and relationships with their siblings. Through our services, families have come together to not allow autism to control their lives. Instead, it helps them build their bond by creating a new way of communicating and understanding each other. We also help to instill a sense of self-confidence and acceptance in those diagnosed with autism. To see an individual who fully understands and accepts their diagnosis is proud of who they are is what we strive to achieve. Now I'd like to share with you a personal story about some of the relationships that I have built while working with the clients during the recreational programs. When I first started working for Autism Services 3 summers ago, there was a little boy named Matthew, and we hit it off right away. It wasn't long before he had me coloring full pages of little purple circles for hours on end. It started off with him wanting 1 picture per day, and it only grew from there. Pretty soon I was coloring 4 or 5 pictures of little purple circles. Well, throughout the course of the summer, I had colored dozens and dozens of pictures for him. It wasn't until the very end that I finally convinced him to color a picture for me, as he was normally happier just watching me color instead. Throughout the 3 years, our bond has only grown, and I've come to not only have a strong relationship with him, but also with his family. On a regular basis, he and I, along with a couple of other staff members, will go out for lunch just to hang out. We spend hours laughing, coloring, and enjoying good food and company. In all of my life, I have never met such a happy young boy who has so much love to share with the world. He is outgoing and always wants to meet new people and just wants to ask how you are. He is such a gentle and caring young man, and he has so much kindness in his heart. And I'm so happy to say that I have been able to build a wonderful relationship with him and his family. And I cannot wait to see what still is to come. I want to thank you guys all once again for allowing me to come and share with you the work that Autism Services does. And I want to thank you for the difference that you're making for our clients tonight just by being here. So thank you. And that's it.
Thank you.
Go.
Do you have any questions? There you go. I
Pardon?
have some questions.
Oh, goodness. Okay.
Exchange balls. This one's working. There we go. Sorry about that. I'm a parent of 2 kids with autism, and just wondering if you wanted to say something about, a lot of people don't understand what autism is. If you could take a second to just sort of try and give people just even the most basic broad strokes of autism, because it's extremely misunderstood of what it is.
I completely agree with you. Well, autism, it's such a broad term. It's such a broad spectrum. Basically, it's just the way that the brain works. There is individuals who have autism. They suffer or have problems with social interactions. They are very repetitive, like routines, like things to be the way that they are, and they're very sensitive to different things like touch and noise, things like that. I don't know if that's that counts. I don't know. Yeah, yeah.
I mean, when they hear that I have sons who are autistic, their mind sort of goes to are they retarded, that type of thing, or they're thinking Rain Man, and they're thinking, you know, Wapner, we got to watch Wapner and stuff. So there's so much misunderstood about it publicly. Like my kids, unless you really know them, you would never know that there was something different about them. So just so I ask about trying to make it a little more clear about how like autism just seems to be so misunderstood, I guess.
Yes. I do have to admit, I don't work in the office. I do the recreational programs, so I work with the kids more one-on-one. But I have worked with kids all over the spectrum, and I have worked with some of the most amazing kids who would make the most amazing radio announcers or news anchors. Like, they are all so talented in so many different ways, and they all have different quirks to them and different strengths, and they're just amazing little people. They really are.
The questioner, how would you describe autism? Sorry, I don't mean to cut you out.
No, that's okay.
So the question was, how would you describe autism from your own experience and with your kids? So. As a father.
Well, with my guys, they're both completely different. Like, even though they're both diagnosed with autism spectrum disorder, couldn't be more different in how it manifests. I have my youngest son, the slightest bit of change in his routine can cause him to be almost changed, like he's become possessed for 3 or 4 days as he processes the change in his day. My other one, it's mostly just repetitive things. He gets stuck on one thing, and it's that whole repetitive rigidity in terms of having to do the same thing over and over again. But I mean, he's like a straight A student. He, again, unless somebody knows him, you would never think that there was anything different about him, but he needs to be taught in a very different way. The schools really have done a great job. He goes to St. Matthew's, and they do a great job of adjusting the way the teachers teach to him. It's very individualized, specific to him, because when he goes into a regular classroom setting, done. He washes out completely, but when they just make some adjustments, it works perfect for him. My youngest, he's only 4, so he's just started in a Montessori program now, and they're starting to try and see about tailoring programming specific to him. So the reason I was asking is because you're experienced with it. I've just had a couple of my own kids and that, so I'm not particularly educated on it. So that's why I was more curious in your perspective. I don't know, I guess it just again comes down to how many people have a real misperception of what autism is. They keep thinking of the way it's portrayed on TV as being these idiot savants. And just, that's all.
Yeah, for sure.
Do we have
Yeah, I more have I guess, kind of an announcement. All the 50-50 proceeds today are going to autism as well. So if you guys wanted to donate to it, please come find me. If you don't have cash, I do have $40 cash on me. And I'll take e-transfers if you guys want to donate and don't have cash.
That's very nice.
Perfect.
All right.
good
Thank
to
you
go?
very much.
Perfect.
We're going to take just a quick break to just grab drink and some refreshments, and then we're going to continue in 5 minutes. Thank you.
I wasn't ready for questions. Not gonna lie.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, we want to get started back up. We've got 2 more speakers for you this evening. Next up on our docket is Art Slade. We're going to start up with his talk in about 3 or 4 minutes. So if you can grab your fresh drink and wander back out into the main room, we'll get going with him.
Thank you. All right. Thank you very much. We're going to continue with our next presentation for tonight. We have a couple more exciting presentations. So the next was Art Slade. Art Slade is the author of 18 novels for young readers, including the Hunchback Assignments, which won the prestigious TD Canadian Children's Literature Award. And also his novel Dust, which won the Governor General's Award for the Children's Literature. Please come on up, Art. Thank you.
Thank you. And yeah, thank you so much for inviting me. This is such a, like Ali was saying earlier, we work in our basements and we're not used to seeing people. This is actually too many people for me, but I'll deal with it, that's okay. And yeah, I'm really appreciate being here. Normally, like I've done hundreds of, well, I should actually say thousands of presentations. I usually talk to people in grade 4, I should say children in grade 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, that kind of thing. And I usually have these big kind of explosive presentations with all my media. And I thought, I'm talking to people who do deal with that all the time. I'm going to go really low tech. This is called paper. And sometimes I use it, and you used to be able to put this in a typewriter. And anyway, I don't want to get into all of that. That's kind of a long story. When I was given the topic of talking about language and literature, and I was trying to think of all the different things I'd like to talk about, and this is what I came up with. And I came up with about 3 different ideas, or 3 different titles for my presentation. And the first one was, this is really exciting, Support Systems for Imagination. That's, okay, it's not really that exciting. The other one was Building a Wall with Imagination, but then I thought, a wall, and there's something that makes me think of Trump, and I think he might make me pay for the wall, and I don't want to build that wall. So then Shared Imagination, no, that's not really what I want. And finally, I just settled, well, how about collaborative imagination? That's what I'm going to talk about. I'm going to talk about how imaginations work, but also kind of about words too. So imagination, it's the giant that's inside all of us. Our imaginations are the side of us that are larger than our physical beings. So with these arms, I can reach out about a meter or so. And with these legs, I can run a couple kilometers, maybe a bit faster. If that tiger from Life of Pi is chasing me, then I will run a lot faster. But with my imagination, I can go anywhere. It can, as fast as the speed of thought, to any place I can imagine. And there's few things that our imagination cannot picture. And an endless universe, I got that. Perfect. The tiniest neutron, I can see it. Imagination is what separates us from other animals. We were the ones who looked at a stone and imagined picking it up and placing one on top of the other and creating a wall, a house, a dam, a church. Or taking that same stone, tying it to a stick with a vine and killing a rabbit or a pig or each other. Imagination sent those planes into the Twin Towers. Imagination created Medicare. Imagination is the ultimate human tool, the gift of our oversized brains. And so I live by my imagination. My income depends on me thinking up stories, putting characters in wonderful or horrible situations and getting paid for it. That's what puts food on my plate. And I have to come back again and again every year, sometimes more than every year, and I have to think up new stories. And luckily, so far, the well has not gone dry. Now, it's hard to imagine imagination without the use of words. Words and imagination are so intertwined, they are of the same cloth. How can you tell someone about a dream you had last night without words? How can you tell somebody how great you were at the bar last night without words? How could Muhammad, after seeing the messenger of Allah in a vision, rush home and reveal the first revelation that would become the Quran? He needed words. Words are the building blocks of our consciousness, the framework we use to get across our ideas, our concepts of who we are, where we are going, and where we've been. Words are a very powerful force. That's why the Bible is simply called the Word of God. There's a recognition of how potent words can be. In Genesis, God says, "Let there be light," and there was light. The Bible doesn't say God pulled out a laser beam and there was light. The Bible doesn't say he waved his hands and there was light. He had to actually speak the words, "Let there be light," and it appeared. And Jesus is the Word of God made flesh. It's an inspiring image, especially to a writer. Words that become flesh make up a god or God. Even the Vikings, those great poet warriors, and I have a soft spot for Vikings, they placed words in high esteem. In the Old Norse myths, Odin, the king of all the gods, the one who was missing one eye, decided that he had to have more power and more understanding of the universe. So he goes to the great tree, Yggdrasil, a tree that stretches from the heavens to the underworld. He hangs himself. Now, he's a god, so the rules are different for him. In hanging himself, he's sacrificing himself to himself, which is a riddle, of course. And in this process, he acquires knowledge. And this is what he says after he steps down and undoes the rope. Then I began to thrive and wisdom to get. I grew and well I was. Each word led me on to another word, each deed to another deed. Ruin shall thou find, and fateful signs that the King of singers colored, and the mighty gods have made. Full strong the signs, full mighty the signs, that the ruler of gods doth write. Now, just to unpackage that a little bit, it's saying that this is knowledge, and the knowledge that he gained are words. And these are words that are written in runes on staves or staffs. And those words that he gets are charms of great power. He reads them aloud, and the charm will blunt an enemy's blade, make a warrior invulnerable, catch an arrow in flight, inflame a woman's heart, which sounds painful, but I think they mean it in a good way. To make a dead man speak, he just has to speak a word, and that dead man will speak to him. So that's what he's learning. Secret words, magical words, powerful words. And that's what we forget sometimes in this modern world. We forget how magical words are. They're the tools that we use every day, like knives and forks or pencils. Words have become as common as toasters. And as a writer, I'm always trying to find the secret of words. How do you string them together to make a sentence? But not just any sentence, one that sticks in the reader's consciousness, one that pops, as we sometimes like to say in the business. Words are the atomic structures of what we writers create. And often we are seen as loners working with our words. Poor old Stephen King in his office, banging away at his typewriter, or no, it's probably a word processor now. J.R. Tolkien, busy smoking a pipe and creating elves and dwarves and dragons out of words, all by himself, the poor guy. J.K. Rowling in a coffee shop in England, all by herself, putting Harry Potter on the page. They are alone. They are creating these stories on their own for the rest of us to share. And in one sense, that's true. Harry Potter, Cujo, Gandalf, these characters and their stories don't exist unless that singular author sits alone and creates them for us. But our imaginations don't exist in a vacuum. We share stories, words, concepts all the time. We soak them up like sponges. Behind that author sitting in the coffee shop is a lifetime of reading other stories, the myths we have been telling since day one. Tolkien can't create all of the dwarves, Oin, Gloin, Bloin, Groin, whatever they all are, without reading the original Norse myths. Stephen King doesn't create without Bram Stoker's Dracula or Mary Shelley's Frankenstein. J.K. Rowling has to thank every other orphan story, from Oliver Twist to Star Wars. There's a sense of collaboration, of building on the past. But look even closer. J.R.R. Tolkien was part of an informal group called the Inklings. This group met in secret and plotted to downfall the downfall of the modern world. That's a different group, actually, entirely. This was actually a literary discussion group. They were called the Inklings, and they read their unfinished work to each other and came away with ideas, with suggestions on how to make their work better. And apparently C.S. Lewis, who is the author of the Chronicles of Narnia, apparently he didn't like hobbits, and he told that to Tolkien, but Tolkien kept him in his books, and I'm so glad that he didn't listen to C.S. Lewis about that. Each writer has most likely had some sort of experience in their writing lives with groups and getting feedback. And once a writer has signed onto the treadmill of publishing, they're assigned these creatures called editors. An editor will go through their stories character by character, line by line, twist by plot twist. The story has been created by one imagination, but two imaginations come together to shape the story into a more cohesive form. I've published 18 novels, and so I've gone through this experience 18 times, and it's different every time. With my first novel, Draugr, which means ghost in Icelandic, or someone who comes back from the dead, there was very little editing. The book had come in a white blur of creative heat, written in less than 2 months, polished for another, and in many ways it fell fully formed onto the page. But my next book took me a year. And part of the reason it took a year is because my editor had a suggestion, after I gave him my first draft, of taking one character out and adding another character, and that affected every single thing in the book. And so I had to go back to it again and again and again, but it made it a better book. Editors can be as precise as brain surgeons with particular words or repeated motifs. Or they look at the big picture and cut out big chunks of the novel. Or they come at you with vague kind of readings of the entrails of your book and say something like, I think there needs to be something more right here. And that's all they'll give you. And then you'll have to find that something more. But we don't exist alone. All of us in creative fields who use our imaginations, which I assume encompasses most everything. Right now, I'm the writer in residence at the Saskatoon, I almost said Regina, that was 2 years ago, at the Saskatoon Public Library. And part of my job is to work with other writers. Writers come in, they bring their work, and I talk to them about how they can improve it. And this is something that, and by the way, if any of you are writing anything, the appointments are free. Just look it up on the library's website, and you can talk to me for a whole hour. It's really exciting. Yeah, but don't believe me about that part. Well, you believe me about you can set up the appointment. That's all true. So that's one of the things that I did, though. And for me, I'm kind of feeling like I'm paying it forward doing this job. I get paid for it, too. I'm not that altruistic. But when I was younger, when I was 19, I would go to the writer in residence. And I would go and I would ask questions about my writing. And I got all sorts of tips. The typical things like show, don't tell, which we learn over and over again. Or don't use adverbials, he said snarkily. Or, oh, somebody got that. That's good. Or I went to see one of our writers in residence this many years ago, Lois Simi, and she just wrote very kindly, it wasn't in red, I think it was green, stamp out that. And what she meant is, you use the word that too many times, Art, and you can take it out of sentences. So for the rest of my life as a writer, anytime I see the word that, I think of that. And I also, anybody who comes into my office now, I write it on their papers. So I'm just passing it along. And so this is kind of like, trickle down kind of lessons. One by one, each one of these lessons that you learn from other writers, from reading, they all add up to a writing style. And it changes how my imagination shapes words. So when you see a book or a movie or an author in a lonely office, remember that author is not alone. It may be Stephen King sitting there all by himself, but Mary Shelley and Bram Stoker and his editor and his grade 10 English teacher and Shakespeare, they're all crammed into that room too. His single imagination that has brought that idea to life. But there's also a network of imaginations supporting it, both from the past and the present. So we can become the endless universe. We can become the tiniest proton. We can become Aragorn, banging on the gates of Mordor, shouting, "This day we fight! By all that you hold dear on this good earth, I bid you stand!" Who knows where our collective imaginations will take us next? Thank you. Thank you.
Right there.
So what's your favorite word then?
It's 2 words, royalty check. Yeah.
Just so as not to be on the outside of the joke, what does that mean to write?
Okay, who's speaking?
Hi, right over here.
Oh, there you are. Thank you.
Sorry, what does that mean to write adverbially, and why wouldn't you do it?
Why don't? This is. You know what? It's hard to criticize it sometimes because J.K. Rowling uses adverbials all the time, and it means when somebody says something like "I'm really angry at you," he said angrily. The reason I wouldn't say a majority, many writers don't like adverbials. Angrily at the end of that sentence is the adverbial. Oh God, I suddenly feel like I'm like my English teacher and I'm horrible at this stuff. That you don't need that word. You often don't need the adverbial. What the person said, "I'm angry at you," expresses the fact that he said it angrily. So you can cut off that word. One of the things about writing is that you're trying to present ideas in kind of the shortest and clearest form possible so that people, when they're reading your work, they don't get confused. And so that's one of the things. Angrily is just, it's repeating something you already know. So that adverbial has to go. So that was my little writer's joke. Oh, it's so hilarious.
No. Thanks for sharing, though.
Hello.
Hi.
It's cutting out.
Hold a little bit closer to your mouth so you can Jimi Hendrix is visiting us right now.
How important is it to you to have a group of people you can collaborate with? And where in Saskatoon do you find those people? I'm a writer myself, so I'm just wondering. I just moved here a month ago.
Oh, did you? Okay. Well, I mean, there's a number of different. There's a writers collective. There's it used to be called the Coop, but I'm not sure if it's still called that. So there are different groups you can join. If you join the Saskatchewan Writers Guild, you can also you'll find that there are different writers groups in Saskatoon. Through them, you can find them. And for me personally, I was in a couple of writers groups, and I think you have to find the people who are. I'm a very driven writer. I've wanted since I was 16 to be a writer, and more importantly, I wanted to be a writer who makes a living as a writer. And so that meant that sometimes if I was in a group and there were people who were just writing for fun, even though I totally respect that, it wasn't helpful to me. And so I had to be in a group that were people similar to me, and plus nobody liked me, so they didn't want me in the group. Anyway, we don't want to get into that. It's very hurtful. But what I found is that over the years I've gathered people who are other writers. I mean, now I have editors and I have an agent, and they all read my work and help me. For people who have just moved to Saskatoon, certainly, again, if you hey, come to the writer in residence. He talks a lot, but he's okay. But there are also groups that you can find through the Writers Guild or through what used to be called the Coop. I think they might be called the Coop or the Co-op. Yeah.
Okay. When it comes to word economy and the search to use as few words as possible, is there a trade-off between that and creativity? And have you at times spoken with an editor or a proofreader and gone, no, I actually want those words back in?
Absolutely. I mean, you have to stick to your guns. Editors have opinions, very strong opinions. What I've found is I'm very passive-aggressive with editing. If there's something I don't agree with and they send it in the edit letter and say, you have to take this out, I leave it in, and then I wait till the next edit letter and see if they mention it again. If they don't, I think, oh, I kind of pulled that, the wool over their eyes. And I don't know that it's the kind of the finest point of making a sentence or a paragraph, as perfect as possible is, for me personally, to make it shorter and clearer. And so that's the art of it to me, is to make it so that there's nothing extra in there. That's my job. Not every writer works that way, and not every genre works that way. But because of just the way I write, I'm a very, I don't want to say a fast writer, but the books I write are never long. That's how it works for me. Well, that's a great thing to hear, because I can't seem to get over 100,000 words. Or if I do, people tell me to cut it. I don't know why.
So I have another question for you.
Yep.
I know that you've been in the young adult fiction genre for quite a while.
Yeah.
Have you tried to branch out, or do you think you ever will branch out beyond that?
Good question. I have. I guess I am actually branching out next month. I've actually written a book that is going to be self-published. I'm branching out in several ways because I've been published by publishers all across the world and by larger publishers. But I also I'm very entrepreneurial, and I wanted to try out just publishing on my own and understanding how that works. So I have a book coming out next month that I've written specifically for kind of a target market of what they would call new adult, or kind of from we'll say 18 and up, or maybe probably 16 and up. And this book is called Amber Fang, and its subtitle is Librarian, Assassin, Vampire. And so there you go. See, the book tells itself. That's all. You're always looking for the elevator pitch, right? So that's something that I've written. I hired my own editors. There's actually somebody in Australia right now who's doing the proofread of it. And so I've gone through that whole process myself, paid for the cover. Somebody in England did that. And I just wanted to learn how that whole process works. But I also wanted to write something for an older audience, just because it's funny, because sometimes when I get asked that question, it's almost like, when are you going to grow up? How come you're writing for kids all the time? And for me, that's when I loved reading the most when I was younger, and so it feels very natural to write that, but also because of my style, it's kind of perfect for shorter things. So this book, this Amber Fang book, for those people who don't like long books, it's a short book. It's a very quick read. And so you get it and you'll just burn through it. I hope you'll burn through it and not burn it. That would be horrible. So there you go.
There you go. Okay, thank you very much.
Okay. You're welcome. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Art. So our next presentation is by Devon Hennig, who is our very own Vendastian. Devon is Director of Demand Generation in our marketing department, but he's also author of 2 horror novels and a series of twisted picture books for children. So, Devon, go ahead.
Sure. Can I get this pulled up here? How's this come up, Jason? Hello? This thing adjusts, right? Like it comes up. Yeah, can you pull it up? I'm very tall. We just need to adjust this. 1 sec. Ah, there we go. Whoa, that's tall. Okay. Hello, everyone. Hey, how's it going? Thanks for hanging around. I know it's the very end here, but hopefully you've got a drink and you're all jazzed to talk about sales and marketing tactics now. My name is Devon Hennig. I worked at Vendasta since 2012, but I lived in Toronto for the past couple of years, so if you don't recognize me, that's why. At Vendasta, I've worn a bunch of different hats. I've been digital strategist, product owner, director of marketing, director of demand gen now, but today I'm here representing my alter ego, I guess. For those who don't know, I'm a writer. I've published 5 books in the past 4 years. And I've seen some pretty decent success with that. Enough success anyway that I've now started teaching a class at the University of Toronto called Selling Your Book, which is what this is going to be based on. Strategies, lifecycle marketing strategies for authors, agents, and publicists. So I guess when a literature-themed Ideas on Tap came up, I thought I'd come into town and try and condense a whole 8-week course into 10 minutes here. So we'll see what happens. See how fast we can get through it. So 5 strategies we're going to call it for becoming a bestseller. Notice the star. So bestseller is a funny word. In Canada, what does that mean? It means if your book sells about 5,000 copies, you can call yourself a bestseller. In the States, it's closer to around 10,000 copies. But that's different from the New York Times bestseller list and different from Amazon bestsellers. However, we won't get into that as much. The other reason I did put a star there is basically because I hope a lot of this stuff applies not just to writers, but for any type of entrepreneur. So musicians, video game developers, artists, I know there are a lot of you hanging out in the audience as well. Whoever basically wants to sell more stuff better, because that's my background. So I can't tell you how to get an agent or a book deal or a grant or anything like that. Like my projects are published through my own company. 90% of my royalties come like from ebooks. 100% of my marketing's online, basically. So that's where I'm coming from. And the good news is that this entire space, just like music, just like apps, has been totally disrupted. Like you don't need to be traditionally published anymore or have a traditional publisher to be successful. So take this guy. Does anyone know who this is? Anyone recognize this guy? Nobody? All right, this is Joe Conrath, and he's probably one of the reasons that I started down this publishing path. He's a self-published author. He's the author of A Newbie's Guide to Publishing, which I really recommend checking out online. And he's published 40-plus titles, short stories, mystery novels, all that kind of stuff. And he's become this self-pub prophet, and he's a total machine. Like, aside from doing things like 30-day beer diets, which this is real, by the way. He like only drank beer and didn't eat for 30 days. Apart from that, doing crap like that, he pumps out books like nobody's business, and he's incredibly candid with his revenue. So these are his sales figures just from his self-published books on Amazon in the past 2 years. That's $1.5 million, almost $1.6 million from self-pub in 2 years. So I can't promise I'll get you guys there in any time in 10 minutes here, but it shows that it's happening. And And it's nuts. Like, how is it possible that a relatively non-famous, self-published author is seeing success like this? And it comes down to this whole disruption thing, right? It comes back to this disruption thing where it reminds me of the last time I was in West Edmonton Mall. It was Christmas, there was a Kohl's, and the Kohl's was empty. And then you look across the hallway, and it's the Apple store, right? It's so packed you can't get inside. I mean, there's a freaking security guard standing in front of it. When was the last time you needed a security guard in front of a bookstore? That just doesn't happen. I mean, digital is taking over, and we know this, and we preach this at Vendasta, especially with our publisher partners that we have. And even in the book world, where a lot of people still prefer printed books, the ebook market share is pretty significant. So show of hands, who prefers printed books? Who prefers to still read printed books? Okay. Who prefers ebooks? Okay, so a smattering. This chart, and sorry it's impossible to read, reflects something like that. So I'll just tell you what it is, because you can't see it. It's basically showing, this first column is the United States, these are all different countries, and it shows what % of people exclusively read printed books versus exclusively read ebooks, or somewhere in between. So in the US, 15% of people say they exclusively read printed books, 4 to 5% say they exclusively read ebooks, but the majority is in this somewhere in between category where they've got this mixture going on. And that's a huge opportunity for people like me in the e-publishing business where there are really, really low barriers to entry. So what makes me qualified to give authors sales advice? I'd say I'm not actually, but D. Melhoff is. And that's like a really lame segue. D. Melhoff is my pen name, and that's a whole other presentation for a whole other day, why I use a pen name and what it means and all that kind of stuff. But feel free to ask me later. So anyhow, as D. Melhoff, I published my first book back in 2013. It was a paranormal, supernatural thriller horror called Come Little Children, about a family of morticians and some creepy things up in the Yukon. And it did pretty well. It was at the top of the Amazon bestseller list for both UK and the US for a little while. And then beyond books for adults, I also write kids books. So there's a series of illustrated books, all holiday-themed stories. There's the Thanksgiving one, Halloween one, Easter one. I've got a Christmas one coming out this year as well. And it's fun. Like, you get weird faces, right, when you say, I write horror and kids books. But it's funny when you crack open one of the books, like even one of these kids books, take the turkey one, for example. It's about turkeys who eat humans for Thanksgiving. So it's dark too. And I kind of just say I'm horror for all ages, which is what I like to read. So why not write what you like to read, right? These are some other pictures, I guess, from them. They're haunted house stories. I love goblins, crazy evil foxes doing things. So anyways, like, those are some of my projects. If you want to take a closer look at them, I'm actually going to give one away to everyone here if you're interested at the end. So don't leave yet. Thank you. But since this is mostly a marketing presentation, I guess we'll get back to the meat and potatoes of that. So, all right, here we go. Strategies for becoming a bestseller. Number one, I just got to say off the bat, be professional. Like, make sure your product is the best it can be. This is usually just table stakes stuff. Like in my class, I assume all the people that are taking it have a book that is world class, and I don't really dive into that part. But if you're an author, really quickly what this means is basically, have a great cover. Have a solid product description, stuff like that, convey the genre of the book at a glance, have it readable at grayscale, all that good stuff. You also want to have professional editing. That was touched on in previous talks that you guys heard. There's a difference between developmental editing and copy editing and proofreading. I suggest having all of those phases covered if you're ever into this at that level. Don't trust your friend to edit your book or yourself. Get some serious help. But I mean, where friends can become helpful is the beta readers. Like, ask someone you trust to read your book and give them your honest feedback. D is ensure the price is right. This, again, could be another whole talk on its own. Ebooks, don't have the same costs associated as traditional publishing printed books. So it's kind of more up in the air what you charge. For a self-published author, I go toward the lower end of the scale because I'm not a well-known name. I can't charge $20 like Stephen King can for a new book because people just frankly don't buy it. I'm more of an impulse purchase, trying to build my brand off the bat right away. And lastly here, I just said volume, volume, volume. The more books you write and publish, the greater your virtual shelf space is going to be. So basically, not every book you write is going to be a bestseller, but the more you write, the better chances you have of hitting home with an audience. Number 2 tip I want to talk about is knowing your personas. In the author case, this is your ideal reader. So at Vendasta, we talk a lot about personas, right? Like, who's your target market? Who are we selling to? And if you ask the uninitiated writer generally, like, who's your book for? I've heard a lot of them say everybody, and that's just BS, right? Like, it just takes a quick walk through a bookstore to realize that different people are hanging out in different areas. So take 2 totally different books, right? Kevin O'Leary's Cold Hard Truth versus Andrew Piper's Demonologist. Like, who are the different ideal readers for these books, right? Well, you know, you got Kevin O'Leary, probably business people, entrepreneurs, angel investors, fans of Dragon's Den, Shark Tank, shows like that. The Demonologist, probably Paradise Lost enthusiasts. There's a lot of Dante in there, people looking for the next Dan Brown, like totally different books. So that's obvious. But what if you whittle it down even more? What if all of a sudden you're looking at maybe Kevin O'Leary's book versus Arlene Dickinson's book? What are the differences in ideal readers at that point? So, I mean, you could maybe say Kevin's book now, men probably seeking personal investment advice, finance advice. They might identify more with his philosophies, you know, the cutthroat, confident, cocky boardroom guy. Arlene, typically more seeking network and negotiation strategies. Her philosophy is more philanthropic, aspiring to break the glass ceiling, all that kind of thing. And you can keep going. You get more and more specific. What about Arlene versus Ivanka Trump now? And you have to get to that level where you know your exact reader and what they're looking for. Because the richer your insights into these personas, the more that's going to help form your market messages going forward. So number 3, next, I'm going to say inbound marketing is your friend, and only if you do your research, though. So inbound marketing, you've all heard us, at least the Vendastians, preach about this on and on and on. But for those who don't know what it is, here's the quick 411, I guess. Basically, people's buying behaviors have completely changed. They're tuning out traditional marketing unlike ever before. We're not listening as much to all the blasted advertisements that used to happen. So basically, the old marketing playbook's broken. Almost everybody skips TV ads now. There's high unsubscribe rates from emails. Direct mail's never open. Like, all that stuff that used to work just doesn't. So in order to track customers, you need to provide them with things that resonate, helpful content that they'll love and hopefully share. So inbound marketing is about content. It's about building blogs and interesting pieces for your website, presentations, ebooks, guides, anything that will attract someone that might be interested in the topic that you're covering. So that topic and context is extremely, extremely important. You need to publish the right content at the right place, the right time to be relevant and helpful. And again, at Vendasta, we do this all the time. We spend a lot of time building a lot of really helpful things for our partners, whether that's, you know, free tools for digital marketer guides, agency survival guides, an ultimate guide to the online reviews. This is a whole team that we have in the building doing this on a constant basis. But it's kind of overwhelming. It's like, where do I start if I'm just going to do this for the first time? And I'd say start with what your personas are searching. So if you don't, it's kind of like another phrase that we have. It's like building a billboard in the middle of nowhere. You could have the greatest content in the world, but if it's not what people are actually looking for, it's not going to matter because it's never going to be found, and it'll never drive traffic for you or new readership or anything like that. So let's talk about a real example that I'm super excited for. This is my next book that's coming out this winter. I've been saying that forever, but I promise I'm serious this time. It's actually coming out. So Grimwoods. A remote summer camp becomes a lurid crime scene when the bodies of 2 teenagers are found in a bloody real-life rendering of a classic Grimm's fairy tale. So it's basically Friday the 13th meets Grimm's fairy tales with a bit of the movie Seven thrown in. And And okay, so let's just go through the checklist that I've built so far. So number one, be professional. Hopefully that's taken care of. Got a nice looking cover. It's been edited 3 times. It's gone through 2 beta readers. Likely it's good to go. Next up would be research then. So how do I know how to position this darn thing, and what kind of content can I build that's going to help out my inbound marketing to attract new readers? So the first stop for me is going to be keyword research. Again, this should apply to anybody, not just authors, but if you're trying to sell something online, please start with keyword research. You can use Keyword Planner tool that's in Google AdWords to do a lot of this. It's by far the most popular keyword tool out there. And if you have an AdWords account, you're good to go. If not, you can sign up for a free one. And that's going to give you a bunch of keyword ideas of what people are searching for on a monthly basis. It's even going to give you their search volume. So what is going on out there and what are people actually Googling any day? Beyond Keyword Planner, there are a ton of tools you can use to get more keyword ideas. These are just some of them: Ubersuggest, SEMrush, Keyword Tool. And it's essentially doing what a Google autofill does. It's populating popular terms that people are searching for, right? So the big goal with all of this is to wind up with a huge honkin' list of keywords that you can focus all your content on. So, am I frozen here? Nope, all good. If stuff like this doesn't get you excited, I don't know what would. So, I'm a nerd. But seriously, okay, look at all this traffic, right? There are 673,000 searches a month for Grimm. There are 246,000 searches a month for fairy tales, and it goes on, and it's more targeted the further down this list you go. So now we're cooking with gas. Now we're getting somewhere. We know what people are searching for. Then you can go deeper and start building these things into topics. So all of a sudden, when you look at all this raw data stuff, themes start to come up, right? Original fairy tales, fairy tale characters, dark fairy tales. That would be a good one to build some content around for me. So you start building this roadmap of content that you want, right? And for my book launch, I've already started creating content around these themes. Again, the core strategy here is to build stuff that's going to bring people to your website or draw attention to your book that you can then take one step further and sell to once you've got their attention and their interest, and you know that they're into this kind of thing in the first place. So here are some examples of just content ideas that you would then use. Build an ultimate guide to Brothers Grimm, build an ultimate guide to English fairy tales or something. That's all free that you can start building your email list with and then market to afterward. And all of what I just described at a very high level look is life cycle marketing. And it's from the very first part of the spectrum, attracting traffic with the helpful inbound marketing content. It's capturing leads, we would call them here, I guess, capturing potential readers with pieces of content that they're interested in and building your list. If they're not ready to buy your book, then it's about email campaigns and trying to nurture them along the way. And then finally, hopefully they do buy your book and they leave a nice review and tell all their friends, and you get more referrals. So coming to the reviews part, I guess there are just 2 more other quick points I wanted to make. Reviews definitely are important. Everyone here knows that as well. I mean, the book world is no exception. So does anyone know, this is specifically for Amazon, the difference between a 4.7 star rating and a 4.3 star rating? Okay, clever. Okay, but 0.4 stars might not sound like much or like a huge difference, but a 0.4 star difference on Amazon boosts a product from the 54th percentile to the 94th percentile in terms of sales. So it is a sharp increase that you're going to get. This isn't just for Amazon. I mean, there are other places authors should consider to have reviews. Goodreads is probably the most important of all of them, along with Amazon. So you can do other things like have Goodreads giveaways, anything that you can do to build those reviews, because those, again, are an essential part of that initial online presence. Reviews, by the way, make by and large the best social content, especially for promoting with Facebook ads. I found if I've ever wanted to give a boost to my sales, if I notice something's going on and I just want to amplify that, I will turn the tap on with my book review posts because they just generate a lot of chatter and direct kind of like third-party affirmation that this is a decent book that someone's going to trust and buy. Lastly, before we get out of here, I just wanted to talk about how important the halo effect is. So at the start, I mentioned that I had the #1 book on Amazon for a little while, but it did not start out that way. So I just randomly noticed one day, and this was a complete stumble, that that this book was number 75 on Amazon UK website in this subsection of horror, whatever. I had no idea why. The Brits were suddenly reading this, but God bless them. And I thought 75's good, but we can do better. So that came into, turning on a bit of the social advertising, promoting the reviews, and boosting the book even higher on the bestseller list. So that's kind of what I mean by halo effect, is generally what happens if you notice something's going well and going and has the potential to do better. Bestseller lists are great for that. So if you are starting to climb it, promote it more, get it higher up the list, and naturally what happens is you get more exposure just from the list itself, just because people follow lists like this, and it's a cumulative kind of compounding effect of what you notice. So my advice there, if possible, is just coordinate your launches, save up a little war chest if you can to help out situations like this, because overall, I mean, advertising just isn't sustainable. For guys like me, where I'm selling a 99-cent or $2.99 ebook, and the margin is just crazy compared to what you're going to pay for advertising. So that's why I have chose to focus on all of the inbound marketing that I talked about previously. So here's a quick recap, I guess, of what I covered. I knew it flew by really quickly, but I had 10 minutes to put all this 8-hour course in, so c'est la vie, but recap can't hurt. Marketing checklist, I guess. Be professional, have a good cover, solid manuscript, right price point. Know your ideal reader, how you're going to build all that content for them. Conduct the keyword research with some of those tools that I had mentioned. They're really, really handy. There's an entire course you can actually take that shows how to put it all together, which if you're interested, let me know. And then plot out every phase of your lifecycle marketing plan, which includes, the reviews and all this planning for this halo effect that you might want to get to build in the best case scenario, I suppose. So good luck marketing, everyone. I know it's not easy, but if you are interested as an author, please actually come talk to me after this. Whether you want to self-publish or you want to be more traditional, I've got kind of if I don't have something for the traditional side, I've got friends that I can kind of point you in the direction of, and hopefully you can turn that sort of dream into more of a reality. And I guess even if you don't, and even if you follow all these steps and sales still sucks or whatever, or this one project doesn't turn out, I'd say don't be discouraged. In fact, one of my favorite quotes, I'm going to end with this, is from the man himself, Stephen King. Says, if you wrote something for which someone just sent you a check, if you cashed the check and it didn't bounce, and if you then paid the light bill with the money, I consider you talented. So thank you, everyone. Before we go, I did promise the giveaway. So unfortunately, I don't have my physical books here, but I sell mostly ebook anyway. So if anyone is interested in a free ebook in exchange for hopefully a review, what you can do is email this email with just what preferred e-reader version you want and one of those numbers, and I'll get that to you. I was going to set up a form, but I just was too last minute, honest to God. So this Grimwoods isn't out yet, but as soon as it is, I'll shoot it over to you. And the other two I can get over this weekend. So there we go. Any questions? Woo. Thank you.
Thanks, Devon. That was great. I noticed someone like Alice, who's more traditional author in a way, promotes herself. She's got these writing tools, her blog. It's a lot about promoting, herself as a writer and maybe her books tailing that. Whereas you're promoting your books specifically. Are you as a brand, D. Melhoff, something that you pay attention to? Is it a book at a time?
I think I do my own reputation management, call it. Just in a sense, like, meaning that I have a solid presence. I want to make sure that, like, online, if you search for me, the right things are going to come up. I don't tend to promote myself as much because, frankly, I find it's more about the projects and the getting to the conversion, frankly, and like getting them to pay and download. And it's wasted time and money, I've found, just to do general broad campaigns. Same at Vendasta to a certain degree. Like, we used to run broad like us on Facebook campaigns, or just promote the page in general, and that's all fine and dandy if you've got an unlimited marketing budget, but you don't, so you want to max out ROI and like promote the product first, and then hopefully like they like it and they continue to buy your other books, and that's where like that kind of marketing kicks in. So at the very end, yeah.
Okay. Hi there. I've got I just noticed something, quick observation with the children's books and how you kind of took on the Hallmark holidays. I think that was smart.
Unintentional, but
oh really?
Yeah, kind of. Yeah.
Was it seriously?
Yeah. I mean, I started that witch book when I was like in grade 9, and it's just now coming out. It's crazy. So it wasn't something like predetermined or preconceived, really. But
This is really smart because I'm a parent that buys my kids books
well,
for
now
holidays.
I can bundle.
Yes.
And sell all of them to you.
Yes.
So, Devon, I have a question as well for you. So you mentioned that you write a book, and then you do your research, and then you find your audience at that point. Would it be a good idea to actually do all the research ahead of time, and then write a book for what's out there, like right now for this top search terms, and then write a book for that?
Yeah, I mean, that's super smart. I think that would be where my bohemian side comes in and says, nah, man, just write what you want to write. Or, like, I don't know. I still have a balance of artsy-fartsy guy and, like, sales dude. So, yeah, my sales guy doesn't kick in until after the book's written.
Yeah, I just thought of it because I think I was watching a music video that was completely made up by artificial intelligence, and that's what it was. It was basically just collecting what people like, and the entire song was written by computer.
I'm sure some books are written that way. Maybe not by computer yet. Well, maybe. Yeah.
So I know you said that you would answer this question outside of this, but why the pen name?
Oh, the pen name?
Yeah.
The pen name is another online reputation reason, frankly. If you Google my name, my actual name, tons of stuff is going to come up not related to books at all, to my career, to my personal social media profiles, all that kind of stuff. So I wanted a separate author optimized presence online. And I'm a private writer. I like keeping my life separate anyway, so that was from day one kind of what I wanted to do.
And I have a second question. Okay, so the second question was, I noticed when you did that the keyword search, the first one was grim. Were you able to separate how much of that was actually for the TV show versus for the...
Well, it's a good point. You can even follow on Google Trends where, huge bumps are. And likely a lot of it is for a TV show that comes along or a movie that comes along and spikes it. So the challenge there is actually finding long tail keywords or words that are more direct for your ideal reader. The grim word is a word I would not go after for quite some time until I had other stuff built up around it, just because it is too competitive. It might not be for me. But I will definitely optimize more around the other kind of like dark fairy tales, gruesome fairy tales, true Disney stories, all that kind of stuff that's more like up this alley.
Good to see you, Devon.
Where are you? Oh, hey.
Here. Good to
Hey,
see you,
Rich.
Devon. Glad you're in the office. I have to admit, I'm surprised. I didn't know that you did this, your alter ego. So question here is, knowing from what I've known you, like you're a pretty nice guy and all that, then now all of a sudden you're going to this little bit of a dark place. I'm serious though, like it's a little bit of a darker tone that you take on with these books. So is it something that just comes to you, or do you have to like go somewhere, like in a dark room, or do you have to watch a horror movie or something like that?
I go to the same town as Dr. Seuss, Ubergletch. Actually, it's a fantastic play. No, I honestly, that's a really tough question for writers, like where the ideas do come from. And this particular one, I wrote it as a screenplay originally. I used to write a lot of screenplays before I got into the novel thing. And it was probably, a mix of just having, loved Seven and Friday the 13th and wanting to write something about a camp horror story, and then mixing it and melding it with this Grimm's fairy tales idea.
Me first? I think she is, yeah.
Just wondering how you come up with the titles for your books.
They change so much. Like, it seems put together and like super obvious once it's all done. But I mean, what was it? Alice had said she'd done 300 drafts of a book before writing it or publishing it, and I'm like in the exact same camp. Like, you just go through so many versions and iterations, and when you finally find the one you want, it feels right. And then you just move on. I guess you can't pinpoint it any more than that.
Yeah, she totally stole my question, but I will build on it because you talked a lot about AdWords, and I'm wondering how much that fits into title choice. Title's hard.
Sure. Yeah, so as kind of Alan asked, I use keyword research after the fact, after all the creative stuff's done almost, to support it. With AdWords and PPC specifically, I don't use a lot of paid promotions. I use it just to know what to build content around and rank organically. So, like, just because of the margins, like, because I'm selling a $2.99 book and I'm only making $2 off it, and AdWords is going to charge this much to run a campaign around those keywords, I frankly just use it for its keyword tool. So I don't really build that into my titles at all, but I found social is a bit more lucrative for book writing, just because stories are social by nature. What people recommend, that's how people find books generally, is friend recommendations, family recommendations, and social is just kind of the online version of that. So that's why I believe the reviews work extremely well for authors, promoting reviews, because it's that third-party affirmation.
Yeah, Devon back here. For your illustrator, the guy that's doing your graphics for each of your books, have you found one person that you keep going back to?
Yeah, we're working together on the series. So she is from New Jersey, and it's kind of funny. This is why I love self-publishing, actually, because I love the control of choosing everything down to my illustrator. And I wasn't going to be happy if I got a crappy illustrator that didn't spark that holiday magic feel that I felt when I was writing it. So I searched long and hard to find Ari, and finally connected through, I think, a DeviantArt profile or something. I don't know. And we did 2 books together before I even met her face to face. So that was kind of weird. Like, I could have been walking down the street and passed someone I'd done 2 books with and not even know it. Because it's all just, I guess, online communication. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Devon. That was great fun. So that concludes the evening, this talk, but we have 50-50. So can we have the team come up here, and then we're going to do the draw. There we go.
Would you like to draw, Alan?
I can draw.
All right. Okay. Thanks, everyone, for purchasing 50-50s. We got $112. Last call for 50-50s.
Okay, let's do last call.
Got about 90 seconds. They're over. Oh.